this is the Stanier Mogul. What makes this engine special is it was the first of William Stanier's designs for the LMS. If you notice the engine, the big green one going up and down behind the Jubilee over there, Sierra Leone I think, that was one of his later designs. So when you look at the outside of this and the cab, it's very, you can see the influence of the development. When it was withdrawn from service, it went to a scrapyard in South Wales, and luckily all the others from its class went to different scrapyards and were cut up pretty much immediately. This one survived, and a bunch of guys went down there and said we'd like to buy it. Had a word with the scrap man, he said well I'll put it aside till you get the money. They got the money and saved it, and it came to the Severn Valley in I think 1970 or 74, and it returned to steam in the early 1990s. Since then every steam engine has like a 10-year boiler cycle, so this is we're 18 months into the third one. So the last overhaul took 10 years. It was very extensive but extremely thorough. So there's a lot of what you can't see under this cab. The drag box, which has got to take the whole weight of the train behind it, was renewed, so that's brand new. So hopefully that should last another 40-50 years. So that's the reverser. It's like the gears on your car. You can change direction with that and adjust the kind of the power. Those are your brakes down here. That's the big fun one, that's the regulator. So when we open that, that allows the steam from the boiler through the valves into the piston, pushes your wheels, and then as it exhausts out the chimney, that's your chuff. That there's the water gauge. That's showing us, you can just see it bobbing there, the actual water level in the boiler. So the tender behind you's got coal and water in. So the fireman's job is to shovel the coal from the tender into the firebox, using the shovel, and transferring the water from there into the boiler using the injectors. Believe it or not, that fire's cold. Like when we've only got like 90 pounds pressure, which is enough for blowing the whistle, which we're doing a lot of today. When we're going along, we have 200 to 225 psi, and that'll get white hot when you're going along. You can't even look at it. It's just the intensity of the heat. When they were built, they obviously were designed to always be in steam. They only ever cooled down every kind of 30 to 40 days for exams, and even then that was like for 2 days, then back in traffic. Whereas with preservation, it's almost the opposite. They sit around for a week, then they're in intense use for 2 days, and then, just be careful, that's quite hot, yeah, I should have said.
It's not hot.
It's hot, yeah. Every time a steam engine's either hot, dirty, or usually both.
Everyone thinks it was used as a shunter, but no, it was actually used to haul trains.
Yeah, no. connect remotely to ops control. So it's continuously sending information as to what systems are running and which systems aren't. You might have noticed on your telephone the internet signal's not working here, and so therefore it also isn't working on the train. This is what gives it power. So at the minute, the little red dots, that's how much brake force you're applying. So number 1, a little bit of brakes. Number 6, plenty of brakes. And then they're the power notches down there for making it actually go forwards. You'll notice on this, you've got forward or reverse. 99.9% of the time, you only ever use forwards. So it's not a good practice at all to be sat in here reversing the train. Now there's the old speedo. In this country, this train is limited to 140 miles an hour. It would go faster. Earlier this year, there was going to be an attempt at the speed record for the UK. They attempted it once with one of these, and
a couple of minutes later, something.
well, one of the signallers wasn't paying full attention, and he didn't give them a green signal.
One job.
Yeah, one light to change.
job.
This is quite an interesting screen. You can have a look at all your different systems. So your auxiliaries, what they do is, currently we're attached to a loco, but normally it's got a pantograph on it that goes up in the edge, which is the overhead line at 25,000 volts. Then it comes, obviously the voltage comes down the pantograph into the train to a transformer. Then the transformer distributes it to these auxiliary converters. What they do, they receive 450 volts, turn it into 1,000 volts DC, and then invert that back to 415 AC, because then it's a steady supply, whereas the output from a transformer fluctuates. VCVs, what they are is vacuum circuit breakers. So as you can imagine, if you're turning a 25 kV supply on and off, if you sucked all the air out of the switchgear, there's less arcing. So that's what you have those for. That's the horn, but we're not allowed to press that.
Oh,
Then out here, yeah.
The volume of it is dependent upon the train speed. So when it's stationary, these are made up figures, 80 decibels. But when you're moving along, it'll boost it up to about 120 odd.
You say this unit, it's necessarily just doing a stop and just doing